Welcome everyone to Gray Decision Intelligence Demand Trends monthly webinar series, and thank you for joining us. I think you all deserve a good pat on your backs for attending. In our current higher education environment, being data informed is vital. My Gray DI panelists and I will be available to answer any questions you may have during the webinar. Just feel free to put something in the chat or in the Q&A. Today, we're going to discuss academic program evaluation and growth for higher education. Each month, we do share the latest trends and insights for academic program planning. As I mentioned, put any questions in the Q&A or in the chat area, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. We'll also follow up with you offline if we run out of time. Check your email after the webinar. We will send you a link to the slides and to the video recording. And without further ado, I will hand things off to Bob Atkins, who is the founder of Gray Decision Intelligence and also the best-selling author of Start, Stop, or Grow, a data-informed approach to academic program evaluation and management. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, Marianne, and welcome everyone. Again, we appreciate very much taking the time out of your busy days to come and attend our webinars, and I'm going to do my best to make it worth your while. So first things first, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to explain what a program evaluation system is, and then we're going to provide some data from our system on some leading indicators, recent trends, non-degree courses, and international. Then we'll turn to employment, and we'll spend a little bit of time on current indicators coming out of the employment market. And then we'll share with you something that's brand new for us, which is a full-blown occupational report that you can come in, get, and email to yourself and others. And then finally, of course, I'll summarize and talk about some things that we're doing next. So here we go. What is an academic program evaluation system? Well, first of all, we think it's a critical system to enable growth and sustainable financials, or if I were being more direct, to increase revenue and reduce cost. It starts with your mission and understanding that and making sure that that is considered as you make your program choices. In particular, as you get to small programs where the economics may be marginal, it's important to understand whether those programs are closely linked to your mission. If they are, then they should stay. If they're not, then you need to look harder at the numbers and see if it's worthwhile to sustain those programs. Academics is a critical piece. Are the programs up to your academic standards, whether that's pass rate on the nursing exam or number of students graduating? We then think markets is vital. And people often mistake labor markets for markets. Labor markets are one component of market analysis. What jobs do people have? What do they pay? What are the skills required? It's an important part. But in addition to that, you need to understand student demand. Otherwise, you might, for example, launch a program and find out nobody wanted to come, which is disappointing to sit in your living room and wait for the guests and not have them be there. Not speaking from personal experience, of course. So that student demand is critical. Competition is critical. Who else is having a party tonight? Who's in those markets? Can you attract people given that? And then finally, we look at demographics to make sure that you can pick programs that appeal to the sorts of people that you intend to have on your campus. So if you're trying to increase the representation of minorities, for example, you want to pick programs that tend to appeal to minorities. If you want to increase the population of men, who are now a minority on campus, about 40% of total enrollment across the US, then you'd want to pick programs that appeal to men, and if you wanted women, vice versa, and so forth. By the way, I'm not advocating that any of these demographic stereotypes have any actual validity in the sense that there's a reason why, men should become engineers. There really isn't, but it's a lot of social patterns that repeat, so you can take advantage of those to help fill your campus with the kinds of students you seek. Margins are important because margins pay for mission. They're not the only thing, by the way. You are in the mission business, you're not for profits, but the margins do fund the mission, and importantly, high margin programs can fund lower margin programs that may not be able to stand on their own 2 feet. So that's a lot of numbers, but the numbers won't really get you through to a complete program evaluation. To do that, you need to involve the right people in a good, efficient, informed process. And finally, there's a new dimension to this that is beginning to show its face. Actually, two. One is predict. Can you predict the outcome of launching a new program, for example? And it is now possible to do that, and it should be taken into account when you're thinking about what new programs to offer. And last but not least, people think of program evaluation as an event. We come in, we do program evaluation, we do it every 3 years, whatever, and then it's done. That's really not the way it should be done. Programs need to be managed on an ongoing basis. You need to be looking at the data about the program, whether that's market trends or internal enrollment or a change in DFW rates, and make sure that the program is healthy and that you're taking actions on an ongoing basis to sustain and improve that program. So one of the things we're really working on right now is offering a program a piece of software that helps you manage your programs on a day-to-day basis, answering the right questions at the right times to make sure they stay healthy. Now let's switch gears and take a look at a leading indicator, which is Google search volumes for programs. Let me take a second and explain the chart itself. The gray bars are 2021, the medium blue bars are 2022, the dark blue is 2023, and the light blue is 2024. And what we're looking for here, ideally, is those bars stacked up from right to left, increasing each year. That hasn't been the case, but that's what we're always hoping for. As we look at this year, the numbers are up substantially. So substantially that I worry a little bit that there's something going on with the data that we don't yet understand. But you can see the velocity picking up here the last few months as the gap between this year and last year widens. And this month is up as much as I can remember in our data, 48%. So that bodes very well for the future in higher ed. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of a concomitant factor here. The cost of Google searches has gone up as well. Cost per click is up about 7%. So while there are more searches out there, it's more expensive to acquire students using pay-per-click. What does this mean if you're not a marketer? Effectively, this is a measure of the level of competition in the market. As competition increases, more people bid for the same keywords, and the price of those keywords goes up. And we're now up into the $15 range. We're approaching a record, not quite there. We hit 16 a little while back in March, but we're getting towards the top end of the range that we've seen. So the world is getting more competitive. That's probably not a new idea for any of you. And we're seeing that in the price of marketing. So what's growing fast on Google? What are people searching for? Again, very rapid growth rates, but that's not surprising given that the average is 40%, up over 40%. In July, we have 3 finance-related programs that grew very rapidly. Econometrics and qualitative economics up 360%, e-commerce up 209%, and tax up 156%. Boy, there are some brave souls that want to go study tax. Couldn't do it myself. Then we have mental health with 3 slots in our top 10 for Google search programs that are being sought after by students: counseling psychology, clinical psychology, and taxation, mental health, counseling, clinical, and marriage and family therapy. Then we have a group of other programs that can't be there's no common theme. Electrical and computer engineering up 281%, PR and advertising up 218%, teacher education multi-level up 163%, and fashion merchandising up 117%. So some very rapidly growing programs in terms of student interest. Now let's turn to a slightly more trailing indicator, enrollment. And what we're going to be looking at here is spring and fall enrollment in the academic year 2023-24, so the year that just ended. Fall total enrollment in bachelor's programs has been trending down, albeit not by a lot, and it bumped up in 2023-24 by 1%, and there were some 17 million students enrolled in bachelor's programs in the fall and spring of 23-24. Now, what grew? 96 bachelor's programs increased enrollment. Taken together, they added 303,000 students. Obviously, other programs shrank and offset that to a large degree. Most of the growth occurred in 10 programs. In fact, those 10 programs captured 62% of all growth. Why does that matter? If you're not in those programs, it's very difficult to grow. So it's important to keep track and to get yourself positioned around the programs that are growing, because without that, it's very, very difficult in today's environment. Bachelor's in 2023-24, if we look at enrollment, the top 10 programs that cumulatively got us to 179,000 enrollments here were computer science, cybersecurity, business analytics, data analytics, computer software engineering, 5 of the top 10 tech-related programs. Then we have a group of other programs: elementary education and teaching, finance general, accounting, exercise physiology, and mechanical engineering. If we think of percentage growth, so that told us unit growth, what, in a sense, how many new students those enrolled. Now let's look at it on a percentage basis and say, okay, what's really growing quickly? And here we see a slightly similar story about tech, actually. 5 of the top 10 programs are tech-oriented programs: computer, software engineering, data analytics or data science, cybersecurity up 27%, business analytics up 20%. And you could make a pretty good argument that these two are similar, data analytics and business analytics. So tremendous growth in the analytics side of the house. Computer programming up 16%. And of course, some of the software is also a critical component in your analytics capabilities. Typically speaking, you're going to have to know how to do data engineering in order to get the data in that you need to analyze. So those are related areas, really. Then we have health, and health made the leaderboard with 3 slots. We have community health and preventative medicine, exercise physiology, and psychiatric mental health services tech. And it's not a secret in the US right now. You'll see pretty persistent patterns of growth in fields related to mental health, whether that's jobs or student interest. And finally, we have 2 other programs: human biology and human resource management, both up about 17%. Let's turn to master's programs. Here, the enrollment profile is quite different. They were trending up through 2021, then they dropped quite sharply in 2022-23, and have essentially flattened out, down slightly in 23-24 by 0.4%. And there were about 4 million students enrolled in master's programs in the 2023-24 fall-spring seasons. We have that same concentration as we look at this. There were 122,000 students added by programs that grew. Of those, 71,000, or 58%, were in the top 10 programs. Again, fairly concentrated growth here. So it's important to be in the programs, in the handful of programs that are really driving growth. What were they? More tech. We've got 6 out of the top 10 at the master's level are tech programs: business analytics, data analytics and or data science, computer science, cybersecurity, computer IT admin, and finally, IT project management. So that's a pretty technical group of the biggest growers in terms of unit volume. Now let's turn to health, which only got 2 slots. That's a little different than we would have seen, I think, a few years ago. Mental health counseling and registered nursing both made the top 10 in terms of enrollment growth. And finally, we have a couple of others. Elementary education and teaching added some 7,000, almost 8,000 students, and research methodology and qualitative methods added 3,000 students. What were the big percentage growers? Here, tech falls back a little bit. They did get 3 of the top 10 slots. They won the first 2, 48% growth in IT and project management, 35% growth in data analytics or data science, and 15% growth in cybersecurity information assurance. Now I'm going to give us a little plug here. About 5 years ago, we started doing our emerging programs. And one of the ones we said was going to be emerging at that time was data analytics or data science. And honestly, if we don't get any others right for a while, That one alone has been a tremendous boon for our clients in terms of ability to add students within a growing program. Now, let's take a look at health. We have 3 health programs: mental health counseling, medical informatics, and clinical medical social work. We have some other programs: elementary education and teaching, financial analytics, information resources management, which is up 20%, and education multiple disabilities, up 15%. Now, those are all our degree courses at the bachelor's and master's level. And if any of you are interested in 2-year, we do a separate webinar for 2-year programs. I did that yesterday. The material is available on our website. So now I'm going to turn from degree programs to non-degree courses. And many of you are interested in what certificates I should offer, what less than degree courses should I offer. And so we went and tried to figure out a way to keep track of what's going on there and what's growing, what's shrinking, what's big and small. And what we settled on was looking at Coursera and Udemy. And they're both kind enough to show the total number of students enrolled in their program since inception, which gives you a sense of sort of long-term demand for those programs or courses, excuse me. But we monitor that every month, so we can tell you how many people signed up in those courses in the last 30 days. So you can see not only what's big, but what's trending. So let's take a look. What we find here in Coursera, and it would be even more true in Udemy, is that technology dominates the leaderboard. We've got foundations data everywhere. 51,000 students showed up in the month of July alone. I mean, some of these numbers are just incredible when you think of the volumes that they're handling. AI for everyone, 30,000 students. We've got foundations of user experience, 19,000. Introduction to data analytics, about 17,000. Project initiation, starting a successful project, up 17,000. Excuse me, enrolled 17,000. Technical support from fundamentals, added about 17,000 as well. And then we have 2 down around 15,000. What is data science and introduction to artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence on its own took 2 slots here, and a total of almost 50,000 students enrolled in a single month. We do have 2 personal development programs, courses. Learning how to learn powerful mental tools usually makes our top 3 to 5, and it's here again with almost 20,000 new enrolled students. And finally, Introduction to Psychology attracted some 15,000 students. Some incredible enrollment numbers here. Please don't mistake these enrollments for being similar to enrolling in college. Many of these students won't make it past the first class. It's a very different environment. Completion rates are low, but even adjusted for that, you're talking about thousands and thousands of students who will take these courses, complete them, and get skills that they're looking for, typically while they're working and to enhance their careers. Although, as you can see, personal development is not a small component of what they're looking for in these environments. And I'm a little surprised this month. We normally see happiness up here in the top 2 or 3 programs. But it appears that people are not interested in happiness anymore, and enrollment in that course has dropped off. So what specific skills are people looking for? Now, I want to caution you, these numbers are a bit different than the ones we were just looking at. So now we're looking at cumulative enrollment in these courses, since they were established. So that has a couple of implications. 1, it's a very long time frame. 2, the time frame may vary from skill to skill on this chart, depending on when the particular course was launched. But nonetheless, there's a very interesting pattern here. The highest skill volumes over time are all in things related to personal development: savoring, meditation, happiness, gratitude, all things I think folks wish they were doing more of. Pomodoro technique. No, this is not a method for making tomato sauce. Pomodoro technique is a approach to work to productivity where you measure 15-minute increments and see what you can, no, it's 30-minute increments, I think, and see how much you can do and then take a break. But there's a very defined methodology here for how to become more productive. Meta learning and learning to learn, all personal areas of personal development. Not surprisingly, at the top of our list, we have people trying to learn how to do data visualization and data analysis. Top 2, 58 million people have enrolled in the data analysis course, and some 37 million have enrolled in data visualization. And I think it's important here when I think about the things most of my clients are considering in the realm of courses, non-degree certificates, it tends to be more traditional subjects, and very little, for example, in this middle category of personal development. So I think there's an opportunity to be a little broader in what we're thinking about for certificates. It's not all about professional advancement, though a lot of it is. And you see that in these two very large things at the top. And finally, we have test prep, people getting ready to take one test or another. Most of those are probably high school students getting ready to take the SAT. Now let's go from the US and look abroad. I'm incredibly excited about our international student demand data. I'll explain why as we go through. You can see, first of all, international interest in US programs is increasing. It's up 5% after a brief kind of tail off last year. But even then, it was beating numbers year over year. And this year, it's been up every month so far in the year. So there's a lot of foreign interest and growing interest in US programs. So as we all think about the demographic cliff, remember there is an offset to that you can use, and that's to go abroad. There are still plenty of students abroad who want to come to the US for education. Where are they? Well, I should say first that our data excludes China. We haven't figured out a way to get data from behind the Great Firewall, and that would undoubtedly be number one on this list if we had the information. Number one is India. That's actually sounds obvious, but India has not been on top of this leaderboard typically. Nepal, on the other hand, has been recently. Not a country that probably is immediate. You know, if you had to locate it on a map, most of us would have had trouble. But Nepal is one of the leading countries in terms of interest in US education. And you can see going down the line, I'm always surprised by countries like Nigeria being among the top 10 in terms of interest in US education. Not that big a country to make the top 10. Now, let me pause. Why do you care about this? One of our clients took this information, opened our system, went down and looked down to the city level to figure out in what cities was a high volume of students interested in coming to the US. And then he took a look and said, okay, what programs are they interested in that particular city? And here you can see what international students are looking for. At the bachelor's level, not surprising, they want engineering. Why? Because a STEM degree will allow them to go on and get a 3-year work permit. So not to mention the fact that it's a good way to earn a living. So that's the next step. I know what country, I know what city. Now I need to know which program, figure out the programs that I offer. And then he marketed those programs into those particular cities. One of his comments was that the Google search, the cost per click for Google search was less than 10% of what it would have been if he'd been marketing to US students. So it was much less expensive than US marketing. He added 700 students, 700 international students, by simply looking at the data, figuring out where the students were, understanding what programs they were looking for, and marketing those specific programs into those markets. So when I think about why people use a program evaluation system, let's not forget the two reasons. It's not for fun. It's really about increasing revenue and reducing cost. Today, we're going to focus on the increasing revenue side. If we were talking about program economics, we'd be working the cost side. But both those fit together in an overall program evaluation system. And by using the market data, you can make very material increases in the number of students enrolled in your college. We're not talking onesies and twosies here. I've had clients who've added 600, 700 students, not just internationally, but domestically as well. What are the 10 fastest growing master's programs? It's a pretty eclectic group. There's no clear pattern here the way there is for, in the bachelor's level. We've got education at the top of the list, marketing management, international business trade, that makes some sense. Data science, yep, international is interested in that too. Digital marketing, data analytics and/or data science. These two together, probably the fastest growing thing in the list. Computer science, environmental studies, project management, and clinical psychology. So the diversity of this list, I think, indicates the importance of understanding exactly what's of interest and where. Now let's turn to the other side of a market analysis, which is what do employers want? What programs do you need to offer to ensure that your students can find a job after graduation and get paid well and have a meaningful career? I'm running in contradiction to the feds. Our data on job postings has been up. It continues to go up. And this month, it's up 25% year over year. So there are some things that are going on with our data collection. There are a little, that might make this overstated, but we're not seeing a downturn in job postings. It's nowhere near what it was 2 or 3 years ago, but it is up over last year. Now, I will try and keep this brief. Many of you have heard me talk about this before, but typically when people do labor market analysis, they go to the National Center for Education Statistics, NCES, and that provides a crosswalk that says, if you take this program, these are the fields that you can go into. So, for example, this is fashion, apparel, and design. NCES says you can do 2 things with that: art, drama, and music teachers, post-secondary, or you can be a fashion designer. And that's it. However, when you look down here, you find that this is straight off the NCES website. They say the SIP-SOC crosswalk, that's an academic program or classification of instructional program to standard occupation code, crosswalk, is not based on actual empirical data. In other words, the fashion apparel leads to these 2 careers has no empirical basis. Well, that's kind of a shocking statement, especially since so many labor market analysts base their analysis on that crosswalk or crosswalks that are very similar to that. They did get one right here, by the way, fashion designers. Yep, that's number 1 on the list. So that's good. But they missed the other 9 of the top 10 fields that people with a fashion merchandising degree really go into, whether that's mechanical drafters, multimedia artists and animators, marketing managers, or retail salespeople. There are a lot of jobs out there for these folks that are not in those areas for which they're directly prepared, or that NCES, in a sense, says they should be in. Now, I should be clear too, not every one of these jobs is wonderful. So when we do our analysis, we'll often call out the jobs that don't require a college education. So we don't confuse those jobs are available, but they're not really what we're hoping a college graduate's going to do. Retail sales being one of those. You can get a job in retail with a high school degree. You don't need to go to college to get that. As you move up in retail, often you do need to have a degree. But even then, often an associate's degree is enough. So got to be a little bit careful. Yes, there are jobs. Some of them are not really all that desirable and don't pay very well. So in our systems, we call that out and separate them. Which occupations have growing demand? Well, number 1 here, it shouldn't be a surprise, although it is a bit to me, because I thought when Google and Amazon and so forth did their layoffs, that we'd see a drop in demand for software developers. Well, that may have happened, but it didn't happen in July. We have 22,000 additional job postings for software developers. We have general operations managers up some 8,000. Then we have a lot of healthcare here. Physical therapists up 11,000 job postings. Registered nurses up 7,000. Occupational therapists up 4,500. So good solid growth in healthcare. And then we have some finance jobs, accountants and auditors up some 7,600 jobs, and financial managers up 3,000 jobs. And then we have some other general operations we talked about. It really covers everything here, I think. Oh, engineers, excuse me. I don't want to slight the engineers. 7,000 new job postings for industrial engineers, 3,000 for mechanical engineers, and another 3,000 for civil engineers. So 3 of our top 10 are engineering-related occupations. As we look at the top occupations in terms of job posting growth, not any clear patterns in here. We have healthcare practitioners at the top. Not a secret that we have an aging society and we have an increasing need for healthcare providers. Computation and mathematical, that's all our computer folks. Business operations and finance, some 80,000 job postings in those areas. Management in general, some 74,000. Office admin and support, 59,000. Before I keep going, let me be clear what we're looking at here. These are not specific occupations and they're not specific jobs. What these are occupational categories. So there are a few dozen of these. These are the top 10 in terms of size. And they group together all sorts of individual occupation codes into larger groups, which I thought would be interesting to say, where's the beef here? Which groups are really large? And these are the top 10. Sales, obviously, then we have healthcare support, production, and one that surprised me in its size was architecture and engineering making the top 10 with some 23,800 job postings during this period. I wouldn't have expected architecture and engineering to be that big. Well, particularly architecture, but apparently I was wrong. Now, if we look at job postings in July, again, now we're grouping it by industry as opposed to occupation. For those of you who live and breathe labor market data, these are easy transitions. For everybody else, an occupation is a category of work. So that's what we were just discussing. So for example, administrative would be an occupation. But then you do that work within an industry, healthcare, or retail. And so now we're doing the industry cut. Where are the job postings? Healthcare wins again. 22,000 job postings an increase of 22,000 job postings in July alone. Retail was up another 13,000. Retail and wholesale up 6,700. Education increased by 5,100. Information technology up 4,900 roughly. Manufacturing 3,900, 4,000. Aerospace 3,900. Human resources and staffing 3,400. Hospitals and health clinics. I'm not sure why that didn't get classified as the same industry as healthcare, but well, give it a break. And that's up 3,000. And finally, financial services up 2,700. So those are the industries with the highest growth in job volume. Many of you try to build your programs around skills, which leads to the question of, well, what skills are growing or shrinking? And we found was business and finance skills lead this category right now. Number one, in terms of fastest growth, is Microsoft Office. This is a very large category, so not only is it growing, it's huge. And as I think about college, it's really important that essentially all your graduates come out with a good working knowledge of the Office suite. Without that, they're really not prepared to work. And it doesn't matter a lot which profession you pick. You'll find that Excel, Word, PowerPoint are required almost everywhere. Nurses need to know Excel, for example. Not something I would have thought, but when we looked at the skill volumes, it turns out that's important for them as well. Number two is project management. Then we have among these business and finance programs, finance itself with some 19,000 jobs that required that skill. Accounting skills, 16,000 job postings. Growth is 16,000. Marketing, 15,000. Analytics, 11,000. We have some other skills, not surprising, nursing, given the volume of nursing job postings, computer science, construction, and mental health. I think we're going to see a bit of a downturn in construction going forward, the combination of a collapse in retail because of online. Then the office space market has got a huge glut because of remote work. And then we have high interest rates. It's impacting everything. So I think construction's probably going to be tough for another couple of years. But so far, so good. Now let's take a look at an occupational report. So many of you think of us as doing program work. We actually do have a complete labor market database as well. And what we've done recently is create an occupation report. I want to share with you what an occupation report looks like. So in this case, we've made some selections. We have choices of choosing an occupation, an industry, the education level we want to look at. We might set a salary range, look for particular skills or certifications, a particular location, and maybe even a particular company. I'll take a moment here. Why would you look for a particular company? Well, let's assume that you're in the career services organization and you're getting ready to go visit a company. In a couple seconds here, you can go in and see how many jobs they have posted and what they're for. So when you walk in, you're prepared to talk to them about the students you have who would directly address the needs that employer has. Another fun way to use company data is to look at your competition. If you want to get a sense of whether your competition is growing or shrinking, one of the best ways to do it is look at whether they're hiring or not. So you can come into a job board like this, look at the 12-month hiring, and understand whether that's trending up or down. You can also see what they're hiring for. So you might be able to spot, for example, a competitor launching a new program, and get a good sense of their general health. So it's a very powerful tool. We actually use it with some Wall Street firms for them to anticipate what's going to happen in quarterly announcements. And it's pretty accurate in being able to give them a heads up before the earnings from a company take a hit, and we can see that because they'll have started reducing their job postings well ahead of that. So 3 or 4 different ways to use a company name field. But here what we've done is we picked sales manager, bachelor level in Cook County, Illinois. And we can see the number of job postings, very interesting pattern here. It spiked back, I think it's April, May, and then dropped off quite sharply. And there were a total over the last trailing 12 months of some 638. As we look at wages, been erratic, a little bit up during that same period that the job postings increased. That's logical. In a spike like that, you want a lot of people, you're going to have to raise wages. And now you can see people adjusting back and reducing the wages that they're offering in their job postings. Here are the companies that were offering that peaked. So it wasn't just one company that drove this. A bunch of different companies came in and advertised for this particular job, and now all of that's tailing off. You can see the companies. AT&T leads the list in Chicago that are hiring sales managers. The job title, sales manager, number 1, of course. Top industries, in this case, manufacturing, and the top cities for this particular in this particular area. Obviously, this includes the entire country. And down at the bottom, we can see which academic programs are most likely to produce graduates who will go on into this field. Once we've got that, we can take a look at the volumes by month. And again, we see that peak and then dropping off. We can see that in this chart, and we can see the actual data. If you want to download it and put it in Excel, it's here for you, so you can do that. Salaries and skills. Now we're diving a little bit deeper into the wages, and you can see we're up over last year, but a fair amount of volatility in wages over time with a recent decline. This chart we've seen, we can see the distribution. So it's centered right around $75,000 is really where it peaks, and then it tails off. And yes, some people make a lot of money in sales, well over $200,000. And again, you have a table so you can download it. And importantly for this one, we also give you a word cloud so you can see what skills are expected of salespeople. Now, in addition to those, the general trends, we can dig in and give you demand for durable skills and also more technical skills. Durable skills are often called soft skills, but in many ways they're anything but soft, and often they do endure over time. So that's how we picked our particular name for them. Management's number 1 here, leadership's number 2, and then we have a range of different things, whether it's presentation or customer service or planning below that. I can see my companies in more depth, particular job titles people are hiring for. I can go down and look at the individual job postings and what their content is. And finally, and importantly, I can come in here, I can put in an email address, set my filters, and hit go, and I will get a report like this in my inbox. I could also download it. It takes a minute or two, and just take it with me when I'm done.
Bob, we have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Does the job posting data focus on positions available to recent college graduates?
You can filter that way. It has all jobs. So they're in there. You can filter based on degree level. So that'll give you a sense of when they're looking for a bachelor's. I think you can filter on experience as well. So that would be a second way to do it. So you could zero in on those jobs that are available for recent grads. Great question. Did whoever asked that, did we answer for you? David? Okay. I'm just going to summarize now. If there are any other questions, please feel free. I don't know. Marianne, has Winnell joined us? Yep, there he is. So what we'll do after I summarize is throw it out to you all. Please suggest any academic programs that you'd like to look at. and we'll pull up a scorecard and look at those together. We have to do it at the national level. It's a little too slow to do it at a more local level. But if you have an academic program you're curious about, as I say, we'll pull up a scorecard and we can have a look at that. So
Yeah, I'm
to
not sure.
summarize,
Did I
one,
miss it? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
one sec when I'll summarize and then you're off to the races.
Okay.
In July, Google searches for academic programs rose 48% year over year. That's very good news. There were some stunning growers. Econometrics grew 360%. Unfortunately, marketing for those programs rose a bit. Those costs are up by 7% for Google cost per click. In the academic year 23-24, fall, spring, total enrollment bachelor's programs grew a little more slowly than Google, just up 1%. Master's actually fell slightly. Bachelor's total enrollment in computer software engineering, which topped our list, was 42%. IT project management led the list for master's programs, up 48%. Job postings in the US rose 25% year over year. We're going to keep an eye on that. That's very different from what we're hearing from the federal government, the Federal Reserve. But the job posting data to us appears very robust, and software developers led that list. There's high volume and fast growth in job postings for healthcare and computer occupations. And there always has been. So that's not new news, but it continues to be true. If you're trying to summarize how to pick good programs, it's hard to beat saying you got to be in IT and healthcare. That's very consistent for the last 10 or 15 years. Occupational reports are now available from us. Yay, taking us a while to get there. And we believe they provide a very good view of the occupational data you'll need to inform your academic program evaluation. And you can get them as a report in your inbox or as a PDF, your choice. We will be adding to those over the next several months. We're going to be adding the data from BLS to those reports. And most important, we're going to be cutting them by program. So instead of looking at it by occupation, we'll look at it by academic program, and you can see the jobs that are available for graduates of those specific programs. So let me give you a thought. I think when you think about program evaluation, you're probably thinking about days or weeks of work, months of process to get it all agreed to. And major vendors that we compete with take 6 weeks to do one program evaluation. Well, if you have our systems, it's a little different. You can do months of work in minutes, and that's not an exaggeration. We keep track of 1,500 programs. We can customize that to your specific market. You can score, rank, and scan through those programs in minutes because it's all assembled for you. You can select the ones that have a high potential fit for you. Just because it gets a high score doesn't mean it's good for you. So you go through that, pick the ones that make sense. For each one of those, you can go in our system, click a button, and get a one-page text report in about 1.5 minutes. That text report has, on the market side, data comparable to a report we would have given you as a custom consulting project just a year or two ago. And it's similar to, and in fact, one of our clients held it up next to a competitor report that took 6 weeks and said essentially ours was comparable in quality. I would disagree. I think our numbers are better, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder on this stuff. You can then say, okay, the text looks good. Let me go look at the details and dive into a detailed scorecard on student demand, employment, competition, and demographics. It's right there for you. You can predict, this is a new thing, the potential size of programs you choose. So we built a model with some 100,000 endpoints, millions of data points, and it predicts how big a program will be at your college or university if you don't offer that program. Importantly, it also predicts the size of programs that you do have, so you can identify programs where the prediction's higher than what you're actually doing. Great indicator of a growth opportunity. And hang in there, folks. I'm going to hand it to Anel in just a moment. You'll look at some programs together. But during that day, you can also develop pro forma financials. We've automated that. You can input the prediction, fill in a few fields, and get pro forma financials back. I would say if we're sitting with someone in finance, it's probably going to take you half an hour to an hour. And all of a sudden, you've got everything from the market through to your financials. And you've got time to spare at the end of the day. So this is a game changer. And the people who can work this quickly, I think have a huge advantage in a market that's moving fast. So let me hand it off to Winnell, who's going to take you through some of the programs you may be interested in and show you a scorecard.
And it looks
awesome.
like we do have a couple of requests as Winnell gets ready. We have engineering technology, traditional arts disciplines, and cybersecurity.
Yeah, so as I was putting in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and work from, I mean, there's so many different ways we can explore the data in our systems. I know for the sake of time, we like to jump directly into zip codes because that's the only, the only way we can procure, that beautiful scorecard view is at the 6-digit level. But keep in mind, if you're throwing, program families in the chat, we can also do it that way. For example, I heard, engineering technology. So I brought in the 15s, which is usually where those programs live, but I also included the 14s here for engineering. And then I also threw visual and performing arts just to give you this program rank view. The reason I did this is because I didn't know which engineering technology program to select or if there's a specific zip code in question, but I wanted to show you that even when you don't know, there's, it's very easy to identify the direction that you want to go into by looking at this summary view of program performance by given program families here in the 2-digit. So from here, we can select any zip code that we'd like. Is there a specific one, Bob, that you think I should pick?
What it's probably looking for, I don't care, but engineering tech is probably what it's looking for.
Okay.
That may not be a 4-year degree. I can't remember if that's 2-year or 4-year more.
Let me look up tech.
Oh, you get a million techs. Oh, within this, yeah, engineering.
So this is what I kind of meant. Let me see if I can.
Let's pick one and keep going.
Right here, engineering technology general. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
All right, so keep in mind, I do have a bachelor scoring rubric selected right now, and Bob did make that comment that this could potentially not be a bachelor's program. But when I open up the scorecard, the data will let us know right away. Are other folks doing this at the bachelor's level? And you'll find that here on the right, while all this other data populates just immediately, we can see, completions nationally, 44% of them are at the bachelor's level for this engineering technology degree. We see 23% certificate and 33% associates. So it is pretty spread out, but there is a large chunk here that's
Yeah, it looks like it's between associates and bachelors, really.
Mm-hmm. And then
I would have expected it to be higher degree levels personally, so that's interesting.
And then likewise, is the same way that we're looking at the completions and how they're breaking down by award level. We can see here just the overall educational attainment. So for folks working in a degree related to this program.
In a field related to this program, yeah.
Sorry, in a field related to this program, 25% of those folks don't have a college degree, is what this is suggesting, and 29% of them are some college. So again, the workforce is also, demanding associates and below.
Yeah, I think that's folks working, in a factory, for example, working, doing technical support, technical repair on machines. Some of them learn it on the job.
Yep. But again, when we're looking at the scorecard as a whole, the color coding is always very easy, right? The darker the green, the better. So we want to try and find green wherever we can. And then wherever we're not seeing green, we essentially want to maybe look at that a little bit closer and see, what does that mean? And what does that mean for us and our institution in the market that we're looking to serve? So at a high level, student demand seems to be doing okay. When it comes to size metrics, things don't really look alarming in the size category, but, at the growth level, we're seeing some overall, just declines here.
Yeah.
Employment looks okay at a high level. Again, size metrics for employment are relatively healthy. The reason I say that is because of the percentiles of these individual metrics are all above average. Where there seems to be somewhat of an alarm here is at the saturation level, where we're seeing this 39th percentile of job postings per grad. So although the size is okay, the saturation is suggesting that there might be more graduates than there are
jobs.
Okay.
Wages are good, though.
Wages are good.
And competition actually isn't as intense as it might be in other programs. So, I'd be a little nervous if I were thinking about adding this program. Not because it's not a good program, But because they're going to be better programs, and I see one that's down at the 90th percentile, you think, well, that's great. But, I can pick programs here. I can be very, very selective. So it's not a matter of whether, when you're picking new programs, whether it's a good program or not. It's a matter of whether it's the best program that you could launch and invest in. So I wouldn't rule this one out, but I'd be a little nervous about it. Little bit of a decline in student demand, a little bit tight on the employment side. On the other hand, good wages and manageable competition. And one other thing, pretty big
Ooh.
program.
Sorry about
That's okay, don't go back. But I noticed there are 22 completions on average for that. Excuse me, the median for that program. So 4 years, so you can have students in each year. So that's going to be 6 times that many students. So think 100 to 120 students, the median. That's a pretty good sized program.
Yep. And I'm gonna focus it on some of the zip codes that I'm seeing in the chat. If I skipped someone, I am sorry, but I think the next one I see here is 5123. I guess on music therapy, I'm intentionally selecting the 4-digit just because before I work my way into music therapy, I want to highlight something like 512306, which isn't directly music therapy, is in the same family. There's a lot of different types of programs in this family that we might want to look at. And, when Bob's, talking about, could there be another program that's better suited or a better option? This is a very easy way to always, when you're going in here and looking at a specific program, leveraging
Hold
the
on, are you going in? You might not be going to the one they asked about.
No, I did. I know I clicked the wrong thing. I'm going to click music therapy here. But
Great.
as I'm clicking into music therapy, I know that there are other programs in this family that might deserve my attention, not because it's necessarily the better program, but just there's so many things that could be going on from the data collection standpoint, from the way other folks are reporting this program, where you might want to pay attention to how the data is collecting into some of those like zip codes. It's not always the case, but sometimes it is helpful just to know. Because now when we're looking at information here, my immediate question would be, is there any, potential overlap in student demand that's potentially being captured in maybe some of the other programs that are similar to this, and especially in competition, is 60 really the total campus with graduates here, or should we be looking at competition from the 4-digit zip code standpoint to kind of make sure those folks that we know are offering this program that may not be showing up here, are showing up, right? So just keep that in mind when we're looking at a program like this. So music therapy, again, color coding, some alarms in the student demand bucket, some alarms along the employment, but there seems to be, competitive intensity here is suggesting an opportunity. Yeah, Bob, funny comment there. We're seeing very small program sizes is immediately what I'm looking at when I'm looking at this competition. And employment saturation at 0.3.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'm not really sure what to say when I look at a scorecard like this. I'm not really sure what to make of it. Bob, anything that you want to add?
I understand the purpose here, and I think the way to think about this is depends on your mission. If you're in a college where there's a heavy emphasis on providing a social good and helping people, then a program like this might still be appropriate. It's going to be small, but it will, help people. It is a distinct form of therapy. So I think our numbers just tell you that it's not going to be a very big program. You both don't have the student demand. You're going to want to be very thoughtful about how you cultivate jobs for your graduates to make sure that they actually end up being able to practice what they've learned. So that's how I would interpret it. If you're not in a helping school and you're looking for a program, this might not be a good fit for you. All right. Let's see. We had a request for biomedical engineering. Why don't we do one more and we'll call it a day.
Biomedical.
There it is.
Engineering and bioengineering. Great.
Yeah. Now that you all have seen a few of these, you begin to get the picture of one glance, and you see all the green, you're onto something. And I think that's really important because, as you get used to this, you can analyze. It's a very complex sheet, but you can understand what's going on in seconds. So let me turn it back to you, and I'll explain the
Yeah, I
detail.
mean, just to echo that, you know, one side of it is let's look at all the green, or the other side of it is when I see so much green, let me find what's pink. There's so many different ways that you can do this. So instead of focusing on all the green, because it's obvious, right? Lots of student demand, lots of employment opportunities, you know, large program sizes here. You know, let's look at maybe some of the pinks and see what we can take away. Despite all of this, you know, things suggesting things are going well here. Job postings for graduate at 0.9, right? We might want to still put some emphasis on bridging some opportunities to our, you know, to our students. Can we find them jobs? Job openings per graduate are also a little lower here at the 39th and 44th percentile. There are a lot of other campuses with graduates, so this is a competitive field. Not too expensive to market, which is what this is showing here, which is not the worst thing. And, you know, if we're focused on maybe identifying some programs that we can offer online, you know, the completion percentages here online are suggesting this might be a little difficult to do. And then of course there's a bunch of green and a lot of good things going on top of that. And I guess I'll pause there, Bob, unless there's anything you want to add.
Bob, I just wanted to mention we had a really good suggestion out there, and it was for an upcoming session. Could you discuss how to use the data in communications and outreach campaigns? I just wanted to put that out there.
It's a great question. And, you know, I'm going to go off on this for a minute. Everybody, I hope you bear with me, but you all are sitting and listening to people talk about the demographic cliff. It's what we're dealing with right now is not the demographic cliff. Literally, it wasn't even supposed to start until 2026. What we're dealing with is a cliff of skepticism about the value of college. And there's a much better phrase for it that I'm searching for, but it's that skepticism that we have to overcome. There are enough students out there to go to college. We got to get them to come to college. Enrollment rate of students into college, especially men, has declined 3 or 4 points in the last 10 years. If we can recover those 3 or 4 points, the shallow kinds of enrollment numbers we're showing here in terms of growth, those will fix themselves. So we're very interested in this concept of how we communicate this. I'll spend some time thinking about it, and we'll have something for next month. There are specific things I know people do. They use this data to create widgets on their website. So when a student comes in looking for a program, the widget will tell them how many people are, you know, give them all the data about that. What is that? What work do people do? How much money do they make, and so forth. So that's one way to communicate. I think there are things you can do during the admissions process as well to validate the kinds of results that people get once they go to college. And they're stunning. You know, $35,000 net investment in college on average pays off about $900,000. So that's a terrific investment for anybody. It's not that everybody should go to college, but there's a very powerful story for those where it's a good fit about the benefits they can receive and how to interpret, how to use specific data about a given program and the jobs available to convey those benefits. All right. I see you on web digital multimedia design.
Yeah, I saw it was a zip code that was requested. I just wanted it up. Yep. I wanted it to be up. Just, you know, hopefully you could get some insights just from quickly scanning here.
Fire away. We've got 1 minute left.
Great. And the 1 minute summary here is, you know, there is student demand, especially in the size category. This was or is, I think is the key question, a large program. The reason I'm saying was or is because it looks like it is declining over time. And I'm seeing a lot of folks leaving this market where right now you're seeing this 1 percentile. This is suggesting this is one of the most extreme drops, like the absolute value is the largest here of 8 of campuses that left the market. This is being considered a positive thing, but that combined with median program completions of 6, I'd be a little curious about, you know, what are the actual completion volumes for these, you know, 59 institutions if we were to list them from high to low.
Yeah, and then the median's down too as well.
Yep.
So that suggests that people who are still in are shrinking, which is very worrisome.
But if we know anything about the zip codes and family of programs, you know, the 11s are always evolving. I would just be curious about maybe what else has entered in this game. I suspect, I don't know if I'm right, but I suspect that could be a player here. There could be another zip code. There could be a new program. This is pivoting in a direction where it's showing up in the data this way.
Yeah, that's an important point. In about a minute, you can look at this and say, maybe this isn't the program for me. There are a couple of different metrics here. It's not bad actually, but maybe there's something better. But the beauty of that is it allows you, when you're talking to the person who's brought this idea to you, to step back and, as one else says, go look at the category. Maybe they just missed by a hair. And if we look at another program in the 11s, we can find a really good program. So that ability to say, maybe not quickly and look is actually an encouragement to innovation, not a dissuader. If I have to wait 6 months to get an answer, yeah, then it's a pain in the neck. But if it's 5 or 10 minutes looking at this together and saying, oh, maybe we should look at something else. And oftentimes, one of our best users who's helped his college grow enormously, a variety of programs, that's exactly what he does. He works with his client, if you will, with he's in a college, but a professor who comes in with an idea, maybe not that one, and then they'll work together to find something that really does work.
And just to quickly answer that question, there's one more question I quickly want to answer, Bob. I'm sorry. How would the data change when reviewing a local market? It would be specific to that local market, right? So it would almost completely change the data. Okay.
Right.
Just make sure that's
and
clear.
Programs that work nationally sometimes don't work locally and vice versa.
Yep. And we have those capacities here, program by market matrix. You could just lay those all out. So those are great questions. Spot on with the question there. All right, Bob, that's it for me.
I think that's it for everybody.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you at the same time next month.